Good morning. We're continuing. Today we're going to look at the role of the waist in directing, guiding, controlling the movement. So let's start with a simple warm-up of just doing ward off left on both sides. So step into ward off left. Come back to the V. Step with the right foot. Ward off left, right side. V. Left foot, ward off left, left side. So spend a couple minutes getting comfortable doing the basic choreography, and then we'll talk details. Okay, as you're going through this, pay attention to your waist. And the waist, the yao, encompasses the lower back, the area around the kidneys, and down to the tailbone, as well as what we often think of more of the waist, the portions in the front and the sides, and also the hips. So as you're looking at the waist here, pay attention to all of those things. The lower back, the front waist section, and the hips. So watch how the waist is involved in this. Just so you really get your awareness there. In the lower back waist area. Okay, and now sometimes just with the feet, no arms. So step, when you start out, your belly button is pointed towards your front corner. As you shift, it squares exactly at the end. Come back to the V, square. As you step, point to the front corner, shift, turn in back towards the square. V, step, facing the corner, shifting and turning, square. So you can see what I'm doing. I've got my hands on my hips so that it's really clear to me where I'm facing. So go ahead and try that. Put your hands down and really feel the way that as you shift, you're also turning, and that is directed by the waist. So as you turn, pay attention to the lower back as well. So as I'm turning, I'm paying attention down here in my lower back. And then I turn and I pay attention down in the lower back. So really feel that. So that you're very aware of the turning and the roll of the lower back in making that happen. We spend a lot of time on the hip joints, so of course you need to be doing the right closing and opening in the hip joints, the two of them doing different things. But I want you to feel the lower back while you're doing this. Okay, and now the hands. When you step out, you've got a ball of air. Whichever leg you stepped with, that hand's on the bottom. Whichever leg you're standing on, that hand's on the top. And as you shift and turn, the hands switch. Perfect ward off at the end. Come back, you can either drop your hands or try to keep the ball. Step, ball of air. The foot that stepped out, that hand's on the bottom. The other hand's on the top. As you shift and turn, coming into a perfect ward off. feeling the lower back. As soon as you bring the hands in, it's easy for the attention to go forward and forget about the back. So, as you're doing this, feel the back turning the opposite way. When my front turns left, my back turns right. As my front turns right, my back turns left. That's just the way a circle works. The two sides turn in opposite directions when the circle spins around its center. So really feel that. Watch for the danger of becoming all frontal and pay attention to the back. Now, as you know, because we've been doing this, the motion of the hands is the result of the rest of the motion. It's expressed in the hands, not driven by the hands. No intent, no will in the hands. And one of the ways to check that is to ensure that your hands start and finish at the same time that the turning of the waist starts and finishes. So let's do our ratchet thing. Shift and turn a little bit and stop. Shift and turn some more and stop. Shift and turn, finish. Did your hands end up in ward off left when you finished doing all of the shifting and turning? And come back. On the other side. Stop after you've stepped, ball of air, waist to the front corner, and now ratchet, ratchet, ratchet. Did everything finish where you wanted it to? And again. Step, stop, ball of air, shift and turn 1/3 of the way, shift and turn 2/3 of the way, shift and turn the rest. Everything finishes together. Stop after you've stepped, ratchet, ratchet, finish. Okay, a couple more times on each side, just smoothly, getting this all to go. The waist governs, controls, directs the motion. One more time on each side. And take a break. So we've been working on this saying from the classics. Now we've been doing this. This is our 4th in the series. And we're not done, but we've been working through each of the pieces. And the saying is, its root lies in the feet. It's releasing in the legs, it's directing in the waist, it's taking shape in the hands. Yeah. And so, as we said, this is a description of one thing, what it is to actually do Tai Chi. It's not a sequence. You don't get your feet rooted. Okay, now forget about my feet. Do issuing in the legs. Okay, done with the legs. Now worry about the waist. Do directing with the waist. Done with the waist. Now put the hands where they're supposed to be. So it's not sequential in time. It's not foot, then leg, then waist, then hands. It's one thing, the Tai Chi motion, and in that one thing, there's different qualities that different parts of the body are responsible for. So the feet are responsible for the rooting and the connecting to ground. The legs are responsible for the releasing and the issue. The waist is responsible for the directing and controlling, and the hands are responsible for the expressing and the taking shape. So that's all happening together. And so a lot of times what happens is we do the wrong thing in the wrong place. So we'll have our hands try to make the issuing happening. And so we're doing something, I want to push somebody, and so I'll get here with Beth, and I'll do it all in my hands. And if you've done push hands with people, you certainly will recognize the feeling of someone after you with their hands. Oh, maybe you're here, maybe you're here, maybe you're here, maybe you're here, maybe you're here. And you see, watch as I'm doing this, see how nothing else is changing. I'm just all up here in my hands. So that's not, its rooting is in the feet, its issuing is in the legs, its directing is in the waist and its expression is in the hands. We spend a lot of time taking the will and effort out of the hands because, we have a lot of nerve endings in our hands. They're what we use to connect with the world. As I'm talking here, my hands are waving all around, and I'm not driving them entirely from the rest of my body. It's a really easy thing to do. And, our minds are very apt to focus just on the hands. So we spend a lot of time taking the force, will, intent out of the hands so that it actually can be an expression of what's happening in the rest of the body. We spend a lot of time on the rooting because it's a really easy place for errors to come in, for you to be double weighted. You've got weight in both feet rather than 100%. For you to roll your foot, you come into a 70-30 and the rear foot rolls. For you to lose contact with the ground, you come into a 70-30 and the rear heel pushes out. So we spend a lot of time on that rooting, that connection to the ground. We spent the last session on the legs, and what does it actually mean to be releasing and issuing through the legs, so that the legs are involved in everything. And now this time, we're going to spend time on the waist. The waist, the yao, first means this area here, lower back, kidney area to space of spine. Generically, it means the whole center region of the torso. So your waist, we tend to think the waist is this section in the front. It's all around here. It includes the dantian, it includes the hips. So it's this whole central section. And so we really need to make sure that the waist, again, is involved in every move. And so the key thing that we want to work on today is this notion of guided, directed, commanded. So a lot of times people say all movement comes from the dantian. And what we want to understand from that is that there needs to be motion. There needs to be something changing in the middle section here. When I was just doing the flailing with Beth and just pushing away, nothing's happening in the dantian. This motion is not something coming from the dantian. But that can be, I think, deceptive in that we end up thinking that the waist and central portion of the body actually drives and causes the motion, and it doesn't. It directs, controls, guides the motion. So we're going to do some work this morning, a couple different places in the form, to help you try to find that difference. And the difference is whether or not you're involving the legs. So if I do ward off and I come forward here and I just turn on top, that's the waist is turning, but nothing's changing in my legs. So do that a time or two, just so you get that feeling. So step and shift, and now just turn the top. Use the waist to get into the final posture. And come back. And step and shift, and now just turn the top to get into the final posture. Again on each side. Notice that the legs here are not really involved. They're just supporting you while you do that final turn, rather than being involved in it. And you're actually using the waist to power the turn. So it's the waist that's actually driving it. That is not what we mean by guided or directed. And it's really easy for people to feel that. You can find it in rollback too. So we'll spend some time on rollback shortly, but I want you to do it first now without involving the legs. So starting in ward off right, sit back, and now just turn from one corner to the other. Come back to ward off right, turn, sit back, just turn from the right corner to the left corner. Nothing happening in your legs. And once more, shift and turn. Okay, now the legs are static. You just turn from one side to the other. So that's actually a great thing when beginners do it, because they're starting to actually use their waists. They're not just moving their hands while nothing else happens, but it's not guided or directed by the waist. The motivation, the power, actually happens in the legs. The waist guides or directs. So it's not that you're twisting from the center part of the body, it's that you're using your relationship to ground to actually cause the movements, and then your waist is directing them. So let's look at that in these two moves, ward off and roll back some more. And so just doing ward off, just doing our ward offs again. As you shift, feel how your legs are changing, even all the way into the end. and then come back to the other side. So get those legs alive, shifting and turning. The legs are changing all the way to the end. And as you're doing this, go ahead and use the waist to direct it so you end up in the posture you want at the final bit. So the legs power it, the waist directs it. Really feel how the legs are involved all the way through here, even as the waist is directing it. If the waist didn't direct it and you just used the legs, you wouldn't turn. You wouldn't end up in the final posture. So the waist has to take that motion from the legs and aim it at the final posture you're trying to get to. And so you'll see in all of the moves, there's something happening in the legs that the waist can take advantage of, can aim, can direct, guide, control, command. But you want to really try to feel that. Feel how the legs are changing and the waist is sending the motion and the energy where you intend. Okay, and once more on each side. Great. And so there's a couple of things that the legs can do. So the ground, the Earth's center is down there, a decent amount down. And so we can move gravity, we're in gravity, and so there's basically two ways we can move. We can move along the line of gravity, or we can move along the surface. When I do this, where my legs aren't changing, and I just turn my waist, that's completely motion along the surface here. We call that skating, like ice skating, or hydroplaning, when your car skids on water. I mean, any of those, there isn't that changing relationship to ground. That means there isn't root, and that as a result of that, the legs won't be able to do their issuing and releasing, and the waist will end up powering rather than guiding. Ward off is an expansive motion. So when I come into ward off, all of this is the gather, and then from this point where my fingers have reached the wrist of the front hand, this is expansion as I do that. So my relationship to the ground is first one of feeling the ground more, and then it's one of letting that open blossom expand. Be very careful that you don't thrust yourself off the ground. So when I do this and I think, oh, it's getting bigger, it's really easy to thrust and leave the ground. You see I lost my rear heel. I'm probably leaned forward slightly rather than actually being upright, and I'm up in my upper body when I did that. So that is not what we're talking about. But equally, this isn't just mechanical skating along the surface, no change happening with respect to the ground. So with ward off, we have this gathering and then an expansion. Gathering and then an expansion. And the waist is intimately involved in that expansion so that you can actually get to the shape you want. So do this a little bit more with me. So you step, hand drops, feel that moment of complete gathering, feel yourself expanding. You expand in all directions, which includes down towards the ground. If you don't expand towards the ground, you'll disconnect. And do it on the other side. Get that moment of gathering, and now use the waist as you expand to get to the final posture. And keep doing that some. You gather, use the waist to guide the expansion. Gather, use the waist to guide the expansion. There's a reason they put ward off right at the start of the form. Okay, once more on each side. So that should feel real different from the skating, hydroplaning approach where you're just moving along the surface rather than having the vertical relationship to ground. And I want to say again, don't toss the meat around. Don't turn this into Jack-in-the-Box kind of thing. Boing. Boing. That can feel like it's all happening and the chi is flowing and I'm in connection with the ground in heaven. But it's not, it's force. So when I do this, I've compressed everything forcefully and broing, I lose the ground. Compressed, broing, lose the ground. So as you do this, the compression goes through the body. It shouldn't involve the whole body coming down. It should be going through the body or dropping through the body. The expansion is an expansion through the body, not a pulling of the body off the ground. So our teacher Jane used to say, relax completely so that every joint in the body is open and the weight can drop through the joints. And when she first talked about that, I heard the relax, so that's really good. I heard the opening the joints of the body, and open there doesn't mean the open, close that we often talk about. It's the space inside the joints, so getting space inside the joints. And then I heard dropping the weight, and so I would end up doing these crunched down things onto the ground. That's not it. That's not the weight dropping through the body. That's trying to take the body and compress it down. So I need to just be here, but then feel the weight dropping through the body, and then the ground pushes back up. So while you're doing this, do ward off again a couple times. The compression is not the body dropping. You feel your feet. The expansion is not the body rising. You feel the expansion. So drop the weight through the body and allow the expansion to come through the body. Don't throw your meat around. So the flesh continues to sink even if the energy is coming up and being expansive. Gather and expand. And gather and expand. Okay, and once more on each side, and really feel your waist. The waist in the back turning to guide the motion. The waist in the back turning to guide the motion. So let's look at rollback. So with rollback, again, we did the skating, right? We sat back, and then you just turn. And you can see that is all on the horizontal plane here. That doesn't have anything to do with ground. So as I do this, and I sit back, I need to be feeling down into the ground. So now the danger with this is that you'll make your rollback go down. You'll come back, and because you're dropping, your rollback will come down. And so you see what happened with that. I've crunched, I've bent over, I'm not stable on the ground here. That's what I don't want to do. The other extreme, I sit back and I just turn and nothing happens. That's the thinking that the waist is the power. It's not, the legs are the power. So as I sit back, I'm going to drop into my rear leg, and I'm going to let that come out the front palm. So I sit back, I drop into my rear leg, I use my waist to make that turn, and it comes out the front palm, and it goes this way. It doesn't go down that way. Sure, I could aim. I could decide in the moment I need to take it down. But I don't want that to just happen because everything is dropping. So do this a little bit in rollback with me. Start out and ward off right. Turn to the right and sit back. And now as you turn, feel that leg involved in dropping and let the arms swing. So as I turn, there's a dropping in the leg that comes out in the hand. Just do that a bunch. Turning, feeling the legs, letting the drop happen through them. And the waist responds to that dropping and uses that to connect to the heart of the front palm. Sinking through the leg, connecting to the heart of the front palm. Sit back, sinking through the leg, connecting to the heart of the front palm. Now this will mess you up, but do the mirror image. So start out with the left foot forward, ward off right on the left side, turn, sit back, and now drop into your rear foot, use the waist to turn to make the turn happen and to send it out the heart of the left palm. Turn to the left, sit back, drop into the rear foot, waist directs that out into the hand. Again, sink, sit back, and turn. back to the right. Turn, sit back, sinking and turning. The waist sends the hands. Again, sit back, sink and turn. The waist sends the hands. Once more on the right. Turn, sit back, sinking. The energy goes out to the side even as you're dropping. Other side. Turn to the left, sit back. Now you're going to send it out the heart of the left palm. Drop into the rear foot. Use the waist to direct that out the heart of the left palm. Again, turn, sit back. Drop into the rear foot. Use the waist to direct that out the heart of the left palm. And once more. Now skate, hydroplane. Sit back and just turn. And don't have any change in the rear leg. Sit back, just turn, no change in the rear leg. Do it with the change in the rear leg now. Do it correctly. Sit back and let yourself sink as you turn. Feel how much more powerful that is. Do it on the other side. Hydroplaning first, turn, sit back. Now just turn and just move the hands. Again, just skating horizontal plane. Sit back, turn, just move it through the hands. And now bring the legs in. Sit back, have that sinking as you send it out the heart of the front palm. And do that once more. Great. So we picked these two, ward off and roll back, because they're right there at the front. They're choreographically straightforward. You've done them as many times as you've done any other move. And they really clearly illustrate that it's not the waist just forcing this to happen. The driver isn't in the waist. The driver is in the legs and in the feet. The waist is the controller, the director. So it's not that we're trying to wiggle our dantians around and that magic beams come out of them and mystic things happen. It's that the waist dantian area connects the top and the bottom. So what happens in the legs is meaningfully expressed in the hands. And then the waist, in addition to connecting it, also gets to aim. So that waist is the thing that you aim with. So if you're going to release the arrow, if you're going to fire the motion out of the legs, which way does it go? And which way it goes is aimed by the waist. So this is different from thinking all motion comes from the dantian, and that means I just turn here. That tends to lead you to this horizontal, rather than having the legs actually involved in it. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth now, and she's going to look at another aspect of how the waist directs and commands, namely the kind of yin-yang trade-off between the waist actively directing something and the waist staying right there with it as it follows all the way through. So we'll take it from here.
So I'm going to look at this in a little exercise, the beginning of the damned arm swings. So here's the deal. I step back and turn, and I let that motion play out into my hand. And then I just let it go, and I don't change. And my hand falls and hits me. Do it to the side. I let it fall. So I don't want anything extra in the arm. I step and shift. It sends it out into the hand, and then the hand falls. I'm not pulling my hand back. I'm just letting it go. I step, it sets it in motion. The arm comes up, it comes back down. And so you can do this on both sides. You can do it on one side a few times. Come to the front foot. The rear foot's at an angle. Shift into the rear foot. That power sends the arm moving, and then it runs out of steam because you don't do anything more, and the arm falls back in and kind of lands back on you. You step and shift, the arm swings, and then it just falls right back. Hits you on the thigh. Step and swing. Notice if you have a tendency for it to stop there. If it stops there, that means you're holding on in the arm. So number one is the arm has to really, truly let go. So you step, and it plays out, and then it falls. You step, plays out, and falls. In this beginning part, the body turns, and that's what sets it in motion. If I didn't shift and turn, it wouldn't go anywhere. If I shift and turn without having anything happen, it doesn't go anywhere. I have to let my movement send something out into the arm, but not do anything extra to the arm. So nothing extra in the arm, it goes up, it comes back down and hits you. Notice the feeling. This isn't as easy as it seems. You might have some desire to hold it out there and make it start doing something on its own from the arm, shoulder, chest area. Look for that feeling of nothing. That feeling of nothing. You shift and turn, it falls and hits you. Obviously, we don't do that in Tai Chi. So how do we turn this into something that is the yin and the yang of the waist? So here, the waist turns and sends it out into the arm. When the arm comes back, I follow it. Arm goes up. As it comes back, I follow it. I catch it and direct it back to the front. So if you just look at what the feet are doing, you're starting in the leg that's in front, you shift to the one that's in back, and then you come back to the one in front. The arm is not doing anything different than if it swings up and falls and hits you. The only difference is what your waist is doing. So let me do it facing so that you see the arm. I step and turn, the arm falls back, I follow it. I catch it and lead it back. I am following the motion of the arm and directing it with the waist. So on the other side, and it'll go at the pace that it goes. You don't have to slow it down too much or speed it up. Let it be at a pace that you can follow it. So do it a couple times where it just falls and hits you. Another time it swings, it falls and hits you. One more time, swings. Feel how loose the arm is. Same looseness in the arm. Nothing is different except when it starts falling back, your waist turns with it, catches it, and directs it. Now, on the other side, step, it goes up, let it fall. Goes up, let it fall. One more time, letting it fall. Feel the looseness in the arm. This next time, same looseness in the arm. When it starts coming back, you follow it, catch it, and send it where you're aiming. That's part of what it means to direct the movement with your waist. So, those of you who've done the arm swings with us know that we could spend forever on the minutia of this. See if you can get it going so that you don't have to come to a stop, but the arm isn't doing it. As the arm falls, you come back. You send it out, you follow and direct it back. And see if it falls and I direct it, but I catch it, but I don't turn and direct it anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere. And it actually gets caught. So it has to be something that as it's falling, you turn the waist and direct the hand where you want it to go. In this case, that's out in front. So here you direct it out and direct it back. It can be hard to keep it going without speeding up or slowing down or controlling it. But you can do a couple versions of it at a pace that is natural. And notice how much the waist has to do. It sets it in motion by turning. So the first part of it happens not just shifting, because I can shift and that doesn't make the arm go anywhere. It's the shift and turn that sends the arm up. So just do that much. Try shifting without turning and see if you leave the arm ungrasping, then it doesn't go anywhere. Right? You step, it doesn't really do anything. Now you have to actually turn. Send it where you want it to go. And when it falls back, if you don't do anything, it hits you. And if you come forward as it hits you, but you don't use your waist, it doesn't go anywhere. So try that one. Step, turn, let it swing up and hit you, and then shift your weight back to the front leg. It doesn't go anywhere. It has to be directed by the waist. It goes up, it falls. It goes up, falls as it comes back. Waist is involved. It goes up, you send it right where you're going. So this is something that can be insanely subtle and maddening, but it's really worth looking at because this is the crux of it all. Are you doing it with your arm? Are you doing it from your shoulders? Yeah, I turned my waist, but I turned up here more. Now I'm making it all happen up here. All of this is directed by this turning, and the arm is free. So then what? It just gets more and more complicated. If we were going to do, say, white crane to brush knee, I don't want to worry about how the arm turns over. That's a whole nother exploration. So if you start here and you let the arm fall, you stay with it, you send it out there, get it to fold over, and once it's here, it's coming back and you turn. So let it go, fold it over. Now, send it out. So what you want to do is catch the arm as it folds over, catch it and direct it. See if you can make, I'm only focusing on this arm, I'm not even worrying about what this one is doing. But see if you can feel that the arm drops, the waist turns, sends it out there, catches it, and sends it back where you want it to go. And we should be able to do this on both sides. So let the arm go, fold it over, and bring it back. Let the arm go, turn with it, it comes back, catch it, and direct it. So there's a ton going on here. Notice what it takes to catch it and send it out. You have to have all the stuff that Lee was just talking about. You have to have a connection to the ground. Your legs have to be changing. The waist has to drive, and the hands have to have no will of their own. They don't know where they're going. It's not something where my hand knows that it's going to end up over there, and so as I shift, it makes sure that it ends up there. The arm is just like when you do this and it falls. It's not having a will of its own. The difference between having it fall and having it come somewhere else is how the rest of the body arranges itself to direct the hand. Let's do a little bit of white crane to brush knee again, and just see what you can do with that. So, I guess, not sure. That's the way I was facing before, so that people can see. Yeah. Okay. So, white crane. Now make sure that your arm, your feet, everything's connected. You're not twisted or thrusting out of the ground. Make sure you feel the ground through the tripod. Make sure that your hand is in a place that is connected through the whole body, so that when you let the arm drop, it's going to fall on its own. You turn to send it up. It folds over, catch it, and direct it where you want it to go. And just do that again. Hand drops, folds, catch it, direct it. Once more. Drop, turn, catch it. So that's got the dung and the dong going on here, where you're setting it in motion and you're also sending it where you want it to go. So let's try doing a first third and just become aware of how much has to be changing and sent from the legs through the waist, so that the hands don't have to go where they've learned the final postures are, but instead they can really just be feeling the air, having a changing relationship to the air, having the arm moving through the air, but it's not busy going places that you memorize putting it. That's the job of the legs and waist in particular, to direct it where you want it to go. And begin. Turning the waist. Catch the arm when it folds over. Turn the waist to direct it. Set it in motion, catch it, direct it. I want to do another first third. Before we do that, just a little analogy here. The waist is like the steering wheel on your car. You've got a motor, you've got axles, you've got all these things that make the wheels turn and that actually power the car. But where it goes is dependent on where you point the wheels. And if you just turn the wheels and then you try to make you'll go into a ditch. You have to, it's a constant thing. You don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to go over here, and then you just turn and then you stop redirecting it. So you have to stay with it. You know, if you're turning the corner, you don't just turn the wheel and then go around in circles. You have to turn the wheel until it's time to straighten it out because you've made the turn. So look for the way that the waist directs and follows and stays with the movement. That's how your arms don't get away from you. It's how it's not just, you know, I have to turn a little bit so that when it comes back, I'm still with it. So try to bring some attention to staying with the arms as you turn the waist, and let the legs be doing the releasing so that you've got something to send somewhere. But do look at the idea of keeping with waist and hands, not that they stay in lockstep, but that when the arm starts moving, the body has to turn. When the arm needs to, it's not enough to just, I get here and then I go there. There's all those places along the way. So look for how that keeps you right in the moment, very carefully connected to and following the whole shape. Again. So we're going to keep working with this statement from the classics. For at least the next week, we'll be trying to put it all together, looking at postures and movement that involve this whole piece. We wanted to look at it one at a time so that we could really focus on each part. But then we're going to bring it all together. And so do spend the next while really focusing on the feeling of each of these parts of the energy that we're moving with, and try to feel what's going on, so that the subtlety of it becomes more available to you and more obvious, because a lot of this stuff really is subtle, and you'll have to just explore it some. So thanks for exploring it with us, and we'll be doing more.